Before we take a break, I just have a little bit to go. We'll probably have about 20 minutes, I think, and then we'll take a break. Just to give you a heads up. Now I'm going to have to bring water in here. I'm getting all sore throaty. All right, networking professional. We're not going to call, or I'm not going to call us nerds anymore. Well, yes, I am, but what we like to call ourselves is a networking professional. A networking professional knows the vocabulary. Oops, vocabulary, okay? So in order to be perceived of as a networking professional, wow, that is a really awful vocabulary, sorry. I'll just grade it out. Knows language. There, that fits in the spot. So you need to know the vocabulary of how we use it. So just to give you a sense of what we use, there are a lot of 3-letter acronyms. And if I just go back here, I did talk a lot about UTP. Hey, there it is right there. So you notice I just put UTP right there. That's because I know what UTP means. I don't have any other in there. We'll worry about some of those other ones later. By the way, the 3-letter acronym, if you ever hear TLA, there's so many TLAs in networking. That's what 3-letter acronyms are. So what's going to happen is I'm going to tell you what the 3-letter acronym means. So I'm going to define them. After that, I'm just going to use them. Okay? It's not an important skill or a testable skill, let's say, that you know what that a TLA stands for 3-letter acronym. So don't expect an exam question that says, what is a TLA? Okay? That's stupid. But I will use them. Just like I put UTP on that other slide, I'm just going to assume you know what it means and we'll use it. And so, I don't know, we're about getting stuff done. We're not about wasting our time defining stuff. There's other things too. So you hear a lot of 3-letter acronyms. This is a lot like the military too, where we just kind of spit them out all the time. So there'll be lots of them. The other thing that we like to do as networking professionals is make everyday words that are going to be used in, we'll just say, unusual ways, okay? So there's going to be a lot of everyday words around that when you hear them in a networking context, they mean something else. So if I say a cookie and I'm in a networking class, I know I'm not talking about something to eat, right? So we know a cookie is not something to eat. If I talk about a cloud, I know I'm not talking about water vapor in the atmosphere. And if I talk about spam, I'm not talking about a meat-like substance. Salty meat-like. It's been a long time since I've had spam, though. There are also made-up words. And the funny thing is, I know these are here, but I can never remember them, and then they come later as I go, and it'll just be really silly stuff. Like, what does this mean something at all? The only one I can think of right now, what? Oh, fishing is a good one. So that's up here. Well, I guess pH, yeah. How about this one? See, you just made me think of one. If you ever PWN3D, that one's awesome. Pwned? I don't know. I know, I'm going to put MAC address up here, and that looks really lame. Well, I'll say MAC address all the time. That's actually a 3-letter acronym that you pronounce, and then there it is. Okay. So there's lots of silly words, but you need to learn them. So when you go into a job interview, you need to be able to talk like a networking professional. And don't call yourself a nerd. So I used to work with someone that would call it propeller head. I'm not so much of a propeller head. And I'm going to stop using nerd because I was just talking to someone who was like, my husband is out at a conference with all these nerds. And so I think nerds, like that's like me. But it turns out it was financial planning, like finance nerds. Come on, they aren't nerds. They wear suits. All right, okay. So let's keep going. Users. What do users do? If we're talking about users, they care about whether the application works. Okay? So let's think about this for a second. I can't draw very well here. Let's draw that. That's a lovely. Does that look like a faucet a little bit? And there's handles. All right, let's say I need to wash my hands. And I would like some warm water. Okay. Now, I'm sure that the last time you washed your hands, you didn't think about what you need to do to produce warm water. But now I'm going to ask you, if I want warm water and I approach a faucet, what do I do? Now everyone is just sitting there like, this is so stupid.
The handle that is, well, if you want warm, you need to add hot and cold.
Well, let's just say I want some hot water.
Trying to figure out how difficult trying to make this happen. Okay,
We don't need to make
then
it
you
too
select the
difficult.
hot side and
Which
you
is the hot
turn it
side?
on.
The left side, and then how do I turn it on?
Usually toward you.
Clockwise or counterclockwise? So here's the thing. It's a muscle memory, right? Right? It's in your muscles how to get hot water. And so you just turn it and it just comes, okay? Users are somewhat the same way. When I started with technology, computers were so crazy and foreign, it was literally like me asking you, you know, a user would come to you and be like, how do I get my email open? Or how do I send an email? And you would walk through these mind-numbing steps, like click here, now click this, now click this. It's not like that anymore, right? It's more like dialing a phone number. You don't remember your cousin's phone number probably anymore. You probably think about where your fingers fit on the dial pad. Same way as, I don't know, those of you with those fancy Android phones where you draw your password on the thing. You don't really remember what the dots you're clicking are. You just remember your finger motion on it. And everyone's is like this, by the way. So don't do that one. You need to do, I don't know, whatever. So it's in muscle memory. We call this a tool in use, okay? This means you don't think about it. And like I said, in the past, I mean, this is, you know, as recently as like 10 years ago, people were still thinking about what they needed to do with their computer. So what happens now is we have become a faucet. And the networking user just hits it and says, I need, you know, when I type, what do I need to type? If I type in YA, there will be an entry that appears that says yahoo.com, right? And I can just it'll fill it in and I can just hit enter and it just works, right? This is now muscle memory, understand? And so if they go and start typing that in and Yahoo doesn't comment, and then they type yahoo.com and nothing happens, then if there is a serious problem, we'll just say they work on it. So the user will try to solve the problem a little bit themselves, but then they call us. Okay? So this is why we need to know the user doesn't think about there's valves and water and it comes in here and then it goes over here and this comes over here. The plumber knows how to fix a faucet. We know how to fix an app, okay? And so we need to understand how the plumbing works. Users could care less. Okay, what do we got in here? All right, so let's draw some pictures. This is my diagram of a PC. If I'm in a hurry, it will just have the monitor. I usually put the keyboard on it. This is a PC. Sometimes you call this a client. Okay. These are also, in general, there is what's called a host. Okay. I'll note that down here. A host is a general purpose computing device. Okay? This is to draw a distinction between a network, like a network switch. So this guy here, this is a computing device also, but it's not general purpose. It's a networking device. Okay? So hosts are, I'll draw my server over here. Host might be a client or a server. These are both hosts, though, okay, because they're general purpose. I can change this PC into running as a server if I needed to, run a web server over here, but I'm not going to. So that's my host, okay? Now, there's going to be a network connecting them, and we'll get into this stuff more as we go. This is a switch. Normally, there will be, in a large corporation, there will be multiple switches. In fact, I might put another switch over here. And there will be things connecting off of that switch, and we'll just draw another host over here. Okay? And we'll put the keyboard on it because I'm really excited about that. Okay? So there's another host, another PC over on that side. I've got my server over here. I drew that a little far away, but that's fine. Now running on server, I don't have very many colors here. I will draw an application with this symbol. You guys recognize that one? That is to indicate this is software, and that's supposed to look like a floppy disk. That's a terrible floppy disk. Should I draw a better one? Come on, you guys have seen those, haven't you? I haven't seen them in a long time. Make it a little more proportional. Okay. Looks kind of like that, right? Come on, you remember the little dot too? Little Write Protect tab. Okay, so this is an application. An application is a program running on a host. Sometimes I will call this a process. Okay? A program implies something a little more complicated. A process is something kind of simple. In this case, though, it's a process. We'll call this a browser. And this will be a web server. And I want to emphasize right now, you may have thought of, my computer is the client, but I need you to remember that there's an application running on your computer. So I open the web browser, that's this program, right? The web server is the same way. It has the hardware running the host itself is the hardware, but the software running on it, the program, is a web server. So there's a different application. They communicate by sending messages. Okay? So an application is a program running on the host, and it communicates via a message. Okay? So the applications communicate with each other using messages. So if this is a web browser and I go ahead and I type a URL into the address bar and I hit enter, or if I clicked on a link, I understand, sort of intuitively, don't I? By clicking that link, my web browser is now sending a message to the web server. I clicked on a link and it sent a message. What's going to be in that message that I clicked? Like, what's going to be in the message because I clicked on the link? What's it going to ask for, or what's it going to do? It's like permission to enter, and then it asks for that file. So I typed in, the link it goes all the way to a certain file, and inside the message it's going to say like, hey, can I have, and then it'll say what file I want. So the server gets that message, and then what comes back? Hopefully the file I asked for, right? So I'm going to get the file I asked for back. Okay, that's another message. So we can understand that, right? These are messages. Now, just looking at this diagram, this PC is not connected directly to the host, right? This message communication is sort of at a logical level. They're connected like virtually, but the actual connection is like this cable here, and then into here, this cable here, and then into there, right? So it's actually going to get sent around the network, okay? So we are now worried about, I have to change colors. We'll go with red here. This isn't a very big red. Yeah, you guys can see that. Okay, so now I have, let's break apart the message a little bit. If I break the message down completely, the switch, I'm not going to be able to write with that red marker, sorry. A switch, this will move the messages within a subnet. Okay? Now, a subnet is like a recursive definition. A subnet is just a network that is connected with switches. So everything that's connected together with switches is a subnet. And the switches are the things that move the messages around in the subnet. Okay? So in order to get from my PC, my browser program, to the server and that web server program, I go through switches. And since I went through switches, I'm on the same subnet. We cool here? That's the subnet. Now, if there's a subnet, there's got to be a bigger one, right?
You're saying subnets is between the host, between the client and the host?
Between the client and the server.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is subnet. But it's also subnet if between this one is on my subnet too. Anything over here is on my subnet. Anything here is on my subnet too. Okay? Anything connected together with switches is on a subnet. So if I look at my little thing here, there are 4 ports here. This is a 4-port switch. So the 4 things that are plugged into here would be on the same subnet. Okay? This computer, or this wireless access point also has a router built in. So connecting from this switch, I can have a router. That was lovely. And then it can connect to other networks. And that's where we draw the cloud. And we understand, right, the cloud is not a cloud, right? There's a whole bunch of other stuff in there, but we just can't see it. So a router, this is going to move messages across subnets. Okay? So if I'm going to try to connect to a server that is somehow out here, I need to be able to go, I'm going to send a message that goes to the router, and then the router will pass it on to its destination. Okay? Now I'm drawing this like this for a reason. Because if my computer knows it has to get off of my subnet, the messages it sends look a little different. Okay? My computer has to send a message to the router to tell it to send it to this server. In between time, this message to the router has to go through these switches. Did I blow your mind? We'll talk about that actually probably next week. Why is that shaking? Somebody's stomping around outside.